On the 26th of September 2022, multiple explosions were reported along both the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines, which together supplied around 30% of Europe's gas at the start of the war in February and 13 in September. This came 7 months after Russia decided to attack Ukraine, which then resulted in Western sanctions against Russia, mainly focusing around the import of fuel from Russia. Those sanctions limited the amount of gas imported into Europe from Russia. Many nations, most prominent Germany, were for the time being still somewhat reliant on those gas imports. This dependency on Russian gas is of course nothing new, as Germany has received historically most of its gas from Russia. To ease this process and cut out the middlemen that would require payments for the use of their land, in 2005 the Nord Stream pipeline was dreamed up, which would largely traverse through international waters. This initiative was largely criticized as it would only increase the reliance on Russian gas, which could be used to pressure Germany or increase prices unimposed, as Germany would be forced to continue buying the gas as it had no other alternative. The pipeline finished construction in 2011. In addition to boost the amount of gas that could be supplied, a second pipeline was built, which was christened original Nord Stream 2. Even though Nord Stream 2 was finished in 2021, it never opened. Now let's return to the Ukraine war. As a result of the Ukraine war, West called out sanctions against Russia, which focused around crippling the Russian economy and denying them vital war-waging resources. As part of those sanctions, many called out a complete ban of Russian gas imports. While this was not visible in the short term, as the German government had to find new supplies of gas first, the German government set their eyes on countries such as Qatar, to which German Minister of Economy Robert Habeck from the Greens traveled personally to negotiate a deal. Even though this at first didn't manifest as planned, a later deal was negotiated. This would allow Germany to get gas from Qatar from the year 2026 onwards. The other major supplier became the United States, which began to sell gas to Europe, profiting from the large demand and selling them this gas at an up price. Even though the Germans began to diversify their supply chains, they still were largely dependent on Russian gas in the first months of the war. But this would also end as a result of maintenance work. The pipeline shut down in August, only a few weeks before the pipes would be blown up. Oh, well, who was it? There's three main groups who have been claimed to be responsible for this attack: Russia, the United States, and Ukraine or pro-Ukrainian groups. From the beginning of the crisis, Russia has been largely blamed as the attacker in this situation by both many Western states and Western media. While there is no clear motive for why Russia would blow up its own pipeline, which at this point has already been inactive, energy specialist Simon Tagliabertra suggests that this might have been done as a result of internal conflict, where some were still in favor of exporting gas, as this was a major revenue stream of Russia and Gazprom, and maybe others decided that it would not be adequate to supply the West with gas and that this could be used to pressure them, maybe. So this could also create division inside of NATO, as now states would blame each other, forcing them to partially ignore Ukraine the last few days. Claims have also been made that Russian ships, as part of a military operation or a probing operation, had operated in that area a week earlier, and that they might have mounted explosives to the pipes and that they then remotely exploded them. There's no clear evidence for this claim, as basically any other claims that have been made as part of this crisis. The other main subject is the United States. This was mainly backed by the Russian state and Russian state media, who also, ironically, claimed that the Anglo-Saxons blew up the pipeline. Of course, referring to the British and the Americans, but it has been memed to death with memes such as this. Where they are referring to the ancient Anglo-Saxons. This was also, from my experience as European, the most popular option and the most thrown around. Many claim this. It was, I would say, more popular as an option, while until recently there were no credible sources that supported the claim that the US had been behind this attack. This would change with the bombshell that it was Simo Häyshä's article. Acclaimed journalist who has a stellar track record of unearthing misdeeds such as the Abu Ghraib incident or the human rights violation committed by the US in Iraq and Vietnam. Seymour Hersh proposes in this article that the US and Norwegian divers commanded by the CIA mounted explosives on the pipelines using the NATO summer exercise Baltic 22 as cover. This article has been criticized for only using disclosed sources, only one to be exact. What is interesting to note, and might be a little bit conspiratorial, is that there have been statements made by, most notably, President Biden, that they would do anything to stop the construction and use of Nord Stream 2. What really makes it interesting now is that a German news source claims that it was a pro-Ukraine activist group with no connections to Zelensky that blew up Nord Stream 2, utilizing a small yacht as transport. This also lacks any not disclosed source, as well as being criticized for being unrealistic, as these groups wouldn't have the know-how or equipment to blow up the Nord Stream pipelines. Further claims have been made that this story is a cover-up for the CIA, which partially would explain why it seems so unrealistic. Well, to answer the question earlier made, who was it? We won't know. Currently, it could be both, especially considering the claims that have been made that the Russian ships operated earlier in that area. Before that, I would say it was clearly leaning more to the yes, but we won't get a proper, unbiased answer in the next 50 years, I'd say. Maybe later, but I think this summarizes most of the recent evidence and statements that have been made. So I hope you make up your own mind, do your own research.